Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor Wulawayo series, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Nokubekezela Nyuke, the Managing Director of Treger Plastics Division. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like and share. Let's get down to some work. Nokubekezela Nyuke. Going forward, I'm going to call you Nogu. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you for having me.
Delighted to have you here. To the viewers out there, we just want to say thank you to Legas Rental, the Tea Room at ZITF, and Fabi's Lodge, who have made this series possible. So thank you so much for the support. So Nogu, as I was looking at your profile and reading around what you're doing, I found myself going to a conversation that I watched recently between Oprah Winfrey, Gayle King, who is a very close buddy of Oprah Winfrey, and Melinda French Gates, talking about women and why is it that women don't want to discuss their age?
Right.
Where do you fall on that conversation? Are you one of those people one of those women who doesn't mind discussing their age, how old you are? Do you want to hide it, or do you want to share it with the world? And why do you take those positions? Because I think it's an important thing.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind sharing my age. I'm actually one of those people who, when my birthday is coming around, I start celebrating from the 1st of July. So my birthday was this past weekend. And I'm
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. So I'm a fresh new age of 38.
Wow.
And I think the reason why perhaps you won't find it on many women's profiles, I've found when I was just looking at jobs or job profiles and things like that, when you're 25, for example, we look at the job that you think, this is the job I would want to do, the requirement is age 30 and above. Or when you look at a job and the level that you're at, the age is either always too young or too small for the age where you currently are.
Right.
So you always kind of feel like, is this age barrier reasonable? Does it make sense? And does it really have a bearing on what I could bring to this position or this platform? Does my age really matter in that context? So I think a lot of time, women in particular will remove that age. And also because for women, our journeys are so different. You can get to a certain stage 10 years later than is what is normal, or you can get there quite early and someone will say, but she's not even 40, what could she bring to the table? So that's why sometimes you want to bring age into the conversation after someone has met you and seen you, so that it really doesn't matter how old you are, it's about who you are and what you bring.
So there's a sense then that some people would take a certain view on you because of your age. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
In this conversation that I watched, Melinda French Gates is turning 60, and she's very excited about turning 60. Oprah Winfrey just turned 70, I think last year, if not early this year, and threw a big party and has made everybody know that she's turning 70. Right. Gayle King, who's Oprah's friend, is also doesn't hide her age, which is why I thought, man, let's discuss this issue. And by the way, there's an episode where I asked somebody's age and people got so upset with me. Why did you ask her age? That was so rude.
Yeah.
In your view, I mean, you've shared where you come from, but where does that reticence come from? People are going to judge me because of my age.
Yes, I think so, because, you've heard terms used for women like shelf life. Or she's an off layer, or, she's not good for the market anymore. So a lot of value in terms of women and the traditional roles they've been cast into is about their age.
Yeah.
Are you of childbearing age? If you're 38 and don't have children, for example, or you're not yet married, or you're still in school. So I think there's a lot of pressure to have done certain things by a certain age, depending on whether you want to be a housewife, you're married, you want to have children, or in your work life. So it puts a lot of which I feel obviously is unnecessary, because everybody's journey is going to be different. And things are changing. You know, the expectation that by the age of 25 you should be married is gone. It's different now. You know, the fact that you should have children by 30, biologically, maybe it's more advantageous, but there's so many advancements. People like Naomi Campbell are having children at 50s. So
you can
it's
freeze
changing.
your eggs and all that kind of stuff.
So it's really evolving, but I think the initial reluctance is because there is just a certain, expectation about a certain age of a woman and what they should be like, or what they should have achieved by a certain age.
Fantastic. You've achieved quite a lot in your 38 years. And I want to ask you this. What have been the most significant moments of your life?
Wow. I think I've always been somebody who's very academic and loved school and doing well at school. So one of the most significant moments in my life is when I didn't do well at school. I was at Deloitte. I wrote my first qualifying exam. The previous year, we had written what was called the Certificate in Theory of Accounting, and I'd come out in the top 10 of the country. We wrote an exam in January, and we were 3 of us who wrote, and I failed.
Wow.
That exam.
What did that do to you?
Oh, I was in tears. I thought, the person I knew myself to be didn't exist anymore. I felt worthless. I felt like everything I knew about myself was not true. And it took a lot to go through that process, because when you're in articles, failing an exam means a lot of things. First of all, when you rewrite, you have to pay for it yourself. So that means, you're taking something out of your very small salary already, and it affects your promotions and whether you move on in your growth. It also affects things like where you get seconded, the clients that you get, and generally the mood in the office when you wrote and you were the 3 of you and you're the only one who failed. It was such a difficult time for me. And with that exam at that time, you could only write it again a year later.
Oh, dear.
So I had to go through a whole year of remembering that I didn't make it. My counterparts had moved on. My counterparts were in the top 10. They were going to America for secondment, and I couldn't go anywhere because I had to rewrite that exam. And I remember my mother asking me, "Can you not write it again?" And I thought, that's not the point. But, it taught me that you're not infallible. And if you don't work hard, you don't get the result. It's not automatic. And you have to find it in you that you will fail sometimes in life. But that's not the end. Success is really how you pick yourself up afterwards. It was such a huge mental battle to start studying again for the next year. But also I realized that if I didn't start in good time, I was just going to fail again. So I had to really pick myself up and say to myself, I want this, I have to try again, and I can certainly do it. I think that's the hardest part.
Well, what kept you going in that season? I mean, this is 12 months of waiting. This is 12 months of the person that I thought I was, I'm actually not, and there's a lot of pressure from you. What kept you going?
I think it was the fact that there were some before me who had gone the same path, and they wrote again and they passed. And it's not the end of the world. A lot of support from my family, from my mom, from my dad, and my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, fortunately. But there was a lot of support and encouragement to say, look, it's not the end of the world. You can actually do it.
You did it. You became a chartered accountant. Now, I'm going to ask you this. You 38 years, managing director of Tregers plastic division. For you, what have been the greatest achievement in your life right up to now? I mean, 38 years, you still have another 58 years plus to go.
Yes, thank you. I think there've been lots of great achievements along the way. As I said, getting my qualification. Whereas initially, maybe when I started, I thought, of course I'm going to get it. That little hurdle made me realize that, no, you have to actually work at something to get it. I think my growth and my progression professionally. I was a physics and science buff at school. I never did accounts. I started doing it when I joined Deloitte. And to have pivoted from the person I thought I was in high school to who I am today, I think that's been one of my greatest achievements.
Why did you do the pivot? Why from physics to chemistry and then do what you're doing now? Why did you do the pivot?
It's a funny story. That's my mom.
Okay.
That's my mom. So when I did my A-levels, I did 4 science subjects. I came out with really good results. I came out with 19 points. And the conversation obviously became, what do you want to do? So to give context, I wrote my exams in 2004. 2005, 2006, we know how difficult.
What school was this?
I was at Dominican Convent for my A-levels. So things in Zim were very difficult, or starting to be very difficult at that time. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to study aeronautical engineering. I actually got the place in Australia. But my parents said to me, you can see the fees. There's just absolutely no way. So what alternatives are there? My father is a lecturer at NUST. So obviously I could go to NUST. And I actually did go and do 1 semester of electronic engineering because I was convinced that, I want to be an engineer. But there were other careers that I'd never even considered because I told myself, this is what I want to do. So my parents would take me, when my results came out, my parents and a friend of my parents as well would take me around to see different people. I remember we saw a pathologist, I saw a father of a CA, I saw a CA, I saw a doctor, just for me to open up my mind to other possibilities, particularly with what career options were available in Zimbabwe at the time. And I then heard about the guys from Deloitte had come to Convent, but as the science girls were like, they're not talking to us, But I went to Deloitte to just hear about it and get the requirements. And I remember going home to my mom and saying, that office is just too quiet. The lady didn't even look interested in me. I don't think they want me there. My mother said, just try, give it a shot. So I applied to Deloitte. I went for the interview. I remember when I went for the interview, Trevor, I saw all these young ladies and gentlemen in suits looking so smart. The place was so quiet and calm. And I thought, okay, let's see what the interview brings. But I still want to try engineering. So I went to NUST for 1 semester. Just the contrast of those young people I had seen at Deloitte versus what our life was like at university. And the fact that, they were offering me a salary, they were going to pay my fees, and the opportunities that come afterwards, really it opened up my mind to something I had not given a chance
Fascinating, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I said to my mom, okay, I'm doing this for you. And she will always remind me of that. Every time I say, I love my job, she says, yeah. But
to all the moms out there,
you give your children advice. So I'm really grateful to her because I had no idea that this is the path that I could take. And I was very grateful to for listening to my mom.
It's worked so well for you. You've been the managing director of Tregers Plastic Division for how long?
So I was from 2021, so it's 3 years in June this year. It was 3 years in June this year. Yeah.
What have been the main learnings for you being in this position?
Leadership is tough.
Leadership is tough. I'm going to hold you there.
Yeah.
Leadership is tough. At home, please don't go away.
Yeah.
We're going to go into that space. Leadership is tough.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So see you on the other side.
When you grow up as a girl and you get married, you remember your mother a lot more.
Welcome back to our conversation with Nokubekezela Nyuke, the Managing Director of Treger Plastic Division. And we want to thank Legacy Rental, the tea room at ZITF, and Phoebe's for making the Bulawayo series possible. So before we broke, you were saying leadership is tough. But before going there, I want to ask you, you've got a beautiful name, Nokubekezela.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
What's the story behind the name?
So it means with patience, and it was bestowed upon me by my father. What he was waiting for, I think you'll have to ask him. Maybe he was waiting for a boy.
Yeah.
So I'm the firstborn of my parents, first of three, and the only girl. So I think my dad was just waiting patiently for his first child. So he's the one who gave me that name.
Are you daddy's girl?
You know, I was telling a colleague of mine that, yes, I am and I was and I will always be. But when you grow up as a girl and you get married, you remember your mother a lot more.
Really?
So yeah, even if you were a daddy's girl, there are certain things that you will...
Talk to me about that. Why do you remember your mom more in the marriage than your dad?
Because you then realize what she would have been going through in a marriage. You know, as a young girl, your father is your idol, your hero. He's the provider, he's everything for the home, he's the one who heads the home. And your mom is the stricter one, you know, teaching you how to clean your room, waking you up early in the morning, making you cook, do dishes and so on. Whereas your dad doesn't have to do that. He just comes home and says, how was your day? Tell me about school. And, you know, you put him up on a pedestal. But when you then become a mom and a wife yourself, you realize how much your mother actually did and does in your life. And you need to talk to her to get advice about how do I survive this thing? How did you do it?
Yeah.
You made it look easy, but it's actually not. So I'm close to both my parents and for those reasons, because you get something different from your father and you get something different from your mom. But I think when you grow, you actually begin to live her experience and you feel so much closer to her and realize, wow, I took you for granted. I took you for granted.
She's obviously instrumental in turning you from being an engineer to an accountant.
Yeah.
But what's the biggest lesson that she's handed down to you concerning, you know, raising a family and being the woman that you become?
My mom is a hard worker, and she's just a strong woman, you know.
What does she do? Sorry.
So she's currently the head at Masia Pambili College, and she's a holder of a PhD as well. So she never stopped learning. I remember there was a time when she used to read a lot of novels and books, and a friend said to her, with all the time you spend reading novels, you know you could have a degree by now. And she took it as a challenge. And she said, let me do it. And she got her master's, and then from there she moved on to do her PhD. She got that in 2018, I think. So both my parents are like that. My father is also professor. As I said, he's at NAST. So they're both very academic, hardworking, intelligent individuals. And they just work hard. Like on the weekend, you won't find them at home. They're out and about at the farm, looking after my grandmothers. They're always working. So they've really taught me to work hard. My mom has taught me to be honest and hardworking and give my very best to anything that I do. So that's the kind of woman that she is.
So you finish your articles with Deloitte.
Yes.
You then join Delta Corporation as a management trainee.
Yes,
Is that
a
it?
management accountant.
Management accountant.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. The time is. Yeah, I gather being an article clerk is a tough thing. So you see these people walking around smart and quiet. What was the experience like being an article clerk with Deloitte?
So Deloitte was a very good and growing experience, because I joined after high school, so I was about 19 when I joined Deloitte, and you're thrust into the working world. And as you're saying, you have to start wearing smart clothes and suits, but you're really earning just an allowance to keep you going. And in your first year, you're basically learning how to make tea for your whole team, and you're being sent around to pick up files. And particularly for me, because I was learning accounts for the first time. So anyone who took me on their job had to be patient enough to teach me a debit is when you post, and then a credit, you know. And so it was such a learning experience. Every day you got to learn something. And particularly in our office in Bulawayo was a family, you know, and we like to say it was like a bubble, because I don't think working environments like that exist in many places. It was a teaching culture because everybody knew that you were coming in to learn, and the point is to learn and to grow and to qualify. And so it was just it's a training office, but you're also in the real world. Your work matters.
What did you find to be the hardest thing as an article clerk?
I think balancing the work and the school. That was a hard thing because...
You know, I admire chartered accountants because of that, because that's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. You have to work and
do your
read
schooling.
And do your schooling. And the pressure is you have to do well at school because that affects your work, and you have to do well at work because that affects your school as well. The advantage is most of the time, whatever you're learning is in tandem with what they try and make you do at work, so you can quickly apply what you're learning. But then you also need to learn how to talk to clients, how to extract information from clients, how to work long hours but still wake up and be at work on time the next morning and still commit to your studies and, you know, be everywhere you need to be on time, be professional in your conduct. And it's a lot of lessons. And you're growing. I mean, you're 20, 21, 22. You're younger. You're with people your age, but you're holding clients' files in your hands. And what you're doing...
Responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility. Yeah. So it really thrusts you into a huge amount of responsibility that you need to adjust to as you grow. By the time you're 23, 24, you're heading up audit clients, you're talking to group FDs, you're talking to CEOs, you're going into audit committee meetings. You need to be up for that challenge.
How did you get the Delta job?
The job. So there was an advert that was flighted because it was in the Bulawayo branch at Belmont. And I remember, I think we were traveling to Harare, just a bunch of us for a training course, when that advert came out. And we all looked at each other like, we're going to apply for this job. May the best man win, you know? Because at the time as well, it was a time, I think with articles, you decide fairly early whether you want to stay in the firm or you want to go out. And there are certain times where it's best to leave. As soon as you qualify or a year after you qualify, it's best if you leave then so that you can get the right level of entry job and grow in an industry. So everyone was kind of like, okay, we're going to apply. So we just applied for the job and I got called in for an interview. My initial interview was the panel. And then I got called in for a second interview and I got the job. Yeah.
And you lasted with Delta for how long?
It was from 2012 to 2018, so about 6 years.
What were the key takeaways from that responsibility?
So it was my first industry job. So moving out of an articles Deloitte scenario, auditing space. Yes, into an accounting, management accounting, it was an adjustment because now you are handling numbers live as they're happening. You're influencing decisions, you're reporting to management, you're letting them know what's actually happening numbers-wise, and that is steering decisions that are being made in real time. Management is relying on you to give accurate information, and a big thing in industry is obviously managing costs and managing production, making sure things are happening. So it was a huge adjustment. And then the second adjustment is the type of people you work with. Now, in an audit firm, as I said, you're working with people your age, or partners who are used to training young people. Now in industry, you've got a whole range of people. You've got people who've been there for 40 years in the same position. You've got people who are vicariously trying to climb the ladder. You've got politicians. In audit firms, there's no politics. If you pass, you do well at work, you get promoted. There's no, But in industry, it's completely different.
What made you decide to leave the practice, and go into industry?
I didn't think I was meant for partnership or anything like that.
Why?
I enjoyed auditing. I did well, but I'm not the dot the I's, cross the T's kind of person. I'm happy to be involved in a process and see it to completion, but I'm not a, what do they call it?
Is this the engineer in you?
I think so.
The tension between the accountant and the
engineer is still coming out. So I prefer to be part of a process and FMCG kind of manufacturing, seeing it to the end, looking at the costs, how do they come together. But in terms of, reporting backwards and saying, let's adjust.
You don't enjoy that?
It wasn't. I didn't see myself doing that up to the partnership level. Because when you look at a job or a position, you want to see how far can I go? And I didn't think I was the right fit to be a partner at an audit
That's
firm.
interesting. That at that age, you have that perception.
Yeah.
You're taking that long-term view. Where did that come from?
I think it's an articles thing where you have to decide what kind of career you want and how you're going to grow it. So for me, it was, no, I've enjoyed my time at Deloitte, but I think it served its purpose. I need to move on to where I think I want to be in 10, 15. It can change, absolutely, but how do I build up to what I think would be ideal in 10, 15 years' time? And that looked like a good move for me. At the same time, I think I just got to, when I started at Delta, it was November 2012. We had gotten married in August 2012, and my husband and I were both at Deloitte. So it was also a good way to grow our income and diversify, because there's no point in both of us working
being in one place. And you then leave Delta and join Tregers.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that transition.
So that decision was, it didn't make sense to a lot of people. Because if you're working at a blue chip corporate, the obvious way is to grow in that blue chip corporate. But I think when I moved to Tregers, I just had my second baby. So she was born in March 2018 and I moved in June, but I'd already got the job. And at Delta, there was a lot of pressure to maybe move to Harare and things like that, and which I felt was not really growth for me at the time, based on where our family was and what we wanted for our family. And the Tregers opportunity came at a time where, while it was the same position at the time that I moved, it was being in charge of a whole division on my own.
So it made sense
to you?
It
made sense to me.
It didn't make sense to the rest of the world?
Exactly. When I looked at it, I thought, okay, I'm in charge of a division, and it looks like there's scope for growth a lot quicker. And
again, you're taking a long-term view.
Long-term view.
Fascinating.
Absolutely. And their head office is here in Bulawayo. We've settled. We're growing in Bulawayo. We think it's where we want to raise our children. And it seemed like
How
a
much
good
did
move.
Bulawayo feature in this decision?
Being Bulawayo born and bred, I think.
Because we're in Bulawayo,
Yes.
we've got to talk about
Yes,
that. So it
yes.
featured in a big way.
It did.
Yeah.
I love this city.
Yeah.
There's no pretentiousness.
Yeah.
You know, you are who you are. You do what you can. You do your best. You live the life that you want to live, and you don't have pressure to be anything other than yourself. And that allows you to focus. You know, if you set your goal and say, this is what I want to do, you can go ahead and do it. Obviously, Harare has its huge advantages as well, which you always have to look at, especially when you're a career person.
Yeah.
And I think eventually, or at some point, that will have to come.
Yeah.
But at that stage, I didn't feel I was ready for it.
Is your husband back here with you?
He's based here as well.
Okay.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it will come. I think it's inevitable, but I wasn't ready for it then. Yeah.
So you're 38.
Yes.
We've already said before we took the break. You are in this leadership position.
Yeah.
What have you learned about leadership and yourself
Yeah.
in this position that you've been?
So I think I was thinking about that yesterday because I thought you would ask me. I think I picked out 3 things that I've learned. The first one is that you don't know everything. As a leader, you can never...
That's humility, isn't it?
Yes. It actually, leadership is very humbling. Let me not say tough. Let me say it's humbling because you learn that you don't know everything. And you are not put in a leadership position because you know everything. That's not possible. You can learn from anyone and everyone, especially in industry. You get there's somebody who's been there for 30 years. You can learn so much from them, from their time of having been there. Or someone who even comes in today, but they bring some expertise. So you must, as a leader, always be willing to learn. One of my bosses says to me, every morning I wake up, I tell myself, I know nothing.
Yeah. I'm starting from scratch.
From scratch. So
Yeah.
you come into the office, you're starting from scratch. That also allows you to listen to people. Because if you think you know everything, you tend not to listen. You just are ready to respond. But it's good to listen because you learn.
It's important
It's
to
very
listen.
important to listen because you then make better decisions if you're a listening
So that's the
person.
first lesson?
That's the first lesson. The second lesson is that leadership can be lonely. Not because people... Okay, maybe let me start with that. People will not like you.
Is that the third lesson or the first?
Let's use that as the second.
Okay.
Not everyone will like you.
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
And as women, we struggle with that because I struggle with that personally because I think people should like me. I'm such a nice person. Why don't you like me?
You're not the only one. I struggle with it too. I think
so
you're not
personable.
human if you don't struggle with it.
Exactly.
We want people to like us.
And we want
but
to
the
be
problem is
accepted.
when I then focus on people liking me and not making the right decisions, isn't it?
This is it.
Yeah.
And so making the right decisions means people won't like you.
Yeah.
And people not liking you doesn't mean you're not doing a good job.
Yeah.
So you need to accept that and appreciate it. A lot of people always come and say, oh, but you don't like me. And I say, that's irrelevant. I like you very much, but it doesn't change what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so you need to learn to accept your decisions that you've made, that, you know what, not everyone will like me, and that's okay.
Third lesson?
Third lesson would be, as I said, that it's very humbling. You need to just be willing to learn and listen and learn that, you are not perfect. And you need to be growing every day. So that's what leadership has taught me, and that it's a lonely place. Not because, it's too lofty or whatever, but there are very few people who understand what you're going through at a certain point in time. So you need to be able to go within yourself and find the strength to make a plan. And what do I need to do going forward? If you're someone who's used to asking a lot of people for their opinion, that could be a weakness. If you're a leader, you need to learn to go into a space, be by yourself, and make decisions based on what you've gathered, but you need to learn to be by yourself and operate in that space, because a lot of time you'll sit in that office and you will be alone, and it's on you.
Where do you go to when in your loneliness you're unable to resolve a situation?
Yeah.
In your withdrawing in yourself, you are uncomfortable with the decisions that you make. Who is your sounding board? Who is your confidant?
So first of all, I go to the Bible. Yeah, because that is truth. It never changes. And that is where I get the strength to say, if I pray about it, if I read the Bible and I pray to God about it, and this is the answer that I get, this is what we're going to do. But I do also have a lot of support. So I have my husband who, also being a CA and so on, understands a lot of the pressures. So I can talk to him about it. My mom being in leadership as well, I also speak to her. She may not know the technicalities or nitty-gritties, but human nature is human nature. And a lot of things we discuss about, oh, I'm having this problem, and she'll tell me she's having this problem, and then we exchange notes, okay, let's do it this way. And then I also have good friends who I studied with and worked with at Deloitte. They're all in different places now, but because they're also ladies, they are in leadership.
How much does friendship matter in this regard?
Friendship is essential. And I think I'm the kind of person who enjoys building genuine relationships. So I take my friendships very, very seriously. And I need those friendships because without them, I don't have support to say.
I noticed that tension between you're somebody who invests in relationships.
Yes.
But meanwhile, you come into office, you say, and you invest in relationships with people that you work with.
Yeah.
But I come into your office and you say, you made this decision because you don't like me.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you navigate that tension?
You have to separate and know that, these are friends and this is work. It was a difficult transition for me, especially in leadership, but I've had to remind myself time and time again, say, okay, let's separate it. This is work, this is friendship. And as a leader at work, I think you'll find it very difficult to have close friends where you work. You can have close friends outside, but if you're a managing director, for instance, it will be very difficult for you to be close friends with your subordinates because there will come a time where they'll make a mistake and you have to make a tough decision, and friendship can't feature in that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold you there. We're going to take a break here. And when we come back, I want us to go to understanding who you are, where you went to school, but also go to a heavy lifting issue, which is you are in the plastic division.
Yes.
What's your position re environmental issues, environmental concerns? Plastics cause a problem as far as environment is concerned. How are you dealing with that issue? So at home, don't go away. We see you on the other side.
Bad thing about plastic is that it doesn't disintegrate. But as manufacturers, we use that to our advantage.
Reality can never be ignored. I feel low. I need something to redeem myself. I need a miracle.
Welcome back to our conversation with Nokubekezela Nyuke, the Managing Director of Treger Plastics Division. We want to say thank you to the Legacy Rental, the Tea Room at ZITF, and Febby's Lodge for making the Bulawayo series possible. Thank you so much. So, where were you born, Gal?
I was born here in Bulawayo, yes, in 1986.
Pilo Hospital? Oh,
no, I was born at UBH, Lady Rodwell Maternity Hospital. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which school do you go to?
So I went to a nursery school called Pink and Blue.
Pink and Blue?
Yes. Lack of
Boys and
creativity,
girls.
boys and girls. But the main reason I went, it was quite far from where we lived, but I went there because my grandmother worked there. So my mother at least got daycare and grandmother looking after me at the time. And then I went to Greenfield Primary for my primary education. For my high school, I did my O-levels at St. James Girls High, which is a boarding school in Nyamandlovu. And then I completed my A-levels at Dominican Convent.
You're a convent girl.
I'm a convent girl,
Yeah.
yes.
Any teachers that stand out for you?
Yeah, at St. James, I would have to say Miss Mange. She was our English teacher. And she would...
She did well. I mean, look at how fluent you are, how eloquent you are.
And I really liked her because she did the syllabus and everything, but she would also read us books outside of our normal set books. So she's the person who introduced us to books like To Sir with Love, To Kill a Mockingbird, Flowers in the Attic, you know. So she really was very good and we loved her for it. I think I would mention Mrs. Muvirimi. She was my maths teacher and a class teacher from about Form 1. She was so strict. She was so strict, but I liked her. And so she was one of my, so those are the two. Then at convent, you know, I was there for 2 years and A-level is a bit different. You have to be a bit independent and you study by yourself. But I would mention all of them. I think Miss Maposa, for biology, the two Miss Moores for physics and chemistry, for physics and maths, and yeah, so all my teachers at A-level, I remember those.
So from convent, then you went overseas, eh?
So from convent, I then did that one short stint at NAST of 1 semester, and then that's when I joined Deloitte afterwards. So I was at Deloitte from 2006 to about 2012. Part of the Deloitte training, I think about 5 or 6 years into it, I did a stint in Dubai, and then I also did a stint in Canada.
Okay, you did an MBA?
Yes, I did.
Where did you do your MBA?
I did my MBA with Heriot Watt University.
Okay, so you did by correspondence?
By correspondence,
okay.
yes.
All right. And there's a heavy lifting piece here around, you are managing director for Tregers Plastics.
Yeah.
Plastics and the environment.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're dealing with that issue. You're producing plastics, people are throwing plastics all over the place. What's your role in making sure that we deal with environmental issues in a responsible manner?
So the bad thing about plastic is that it doesn't disintegrate. But as manufacturers, we use that to our advantage. What that means is we can continue to recycle plastic. So as part of our manufacturing process, on the hard plastic side, we actually have 2 recycling plants, one in Bulawayo and one in Harare, where we buy scrap from the dump. So ladies can come together in communities or young school kids can collect at their schools.
Are you involved in creating those communities?
Yes, so we communicate, we go out there, we collect the scrap. In Bulawayo, for instance, we go to Ngozi Mine. In Harare, we would go to Pomona and meet those guys who collect the scrap. So we collect HDPE plastic and polypropylene plastic bottles. We get those from the guys, we pay a certain amount per kg. We wash the plastic, we crush it, we melt it into pellets, and then we reuse it. So in our plastic molding division, a lot of our products are actually recycled using that local recycled plastic. And then in our factory, everything is reused. So we don't throw away any plastic. If there's any scrap, even if we supply our customer something and they don't use it for whatever reason, we buy it back and recycle and re-put into the product. So we've got products that are 100% recycled to try and make sure that the circular economy keeps going. So I think as a country, we certainly need to do more around making sure that plastics circulates all the way in the economy, to set up more people who collect the rubbish, set up more recyclers locally, because you'll find some products are recycled, but actually people have to export them out of the country for that recycling to happen. So I think as a country, there's certainly more work that we need to do to reduce the impact of plastic. I know maybe in our houses, all of us have got a bag of plastics.
Yeah.
So we need to start recycling a lot more. But
do you find you've got enough recycled products and capacity?
Yes, definitely. And I think there's a lot of competition. The competition is coming up for the products that we buy because we put it into things like buckets, basins, and also even irrigation pipes.
Let's go through your products. What are those products that you produce?
Okay, so my division is split into 3 main types of products. The first one is packaging, so plastic packaging for bread bags, milk sheeting, shrink film, black sheeting, that kind of thing. And then we've got a piping division. So we do PVC rigid pipes, which is your water piping, your sewer piping, conduit pipes as well. And then we do hose pipes, so your green braided hose pipe and the black hose pipe, air hoses as well. And then we do HDPE poly pipe, which is used for irrigation, and LDPE as well. And then the final division is injection molding, that's where we do a lot of the recycling. We do plastic buckets, basins, plates, crates, and all sorts of things. And then we also supply components to our sister divisions. So when you look at a superior stove, the sides may be made of plastic. That comes from me. That knob that you use to switch on, that's plastic that's made by me. So we also support our divisions, our sister divisions in the group as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tregers is one of those shining lights within Bulawayo where people have pegged and gone, textile has collapsed.
Yeah.
What explains Tregers remaining here and being successful? I mean, it's a good thing that you're still here.
It is a good thing, and we hope we can continue to still be here. I think one of the strengths of the group is obviously the diversity of products that we offer. If you look from Kango products, whether it's your pot or the stove side of it, when you look at Monarch, window frames, door frames, wheelbarrows, aluminium, and then you look at Treger Plastics, obviously the products that I've explained. You look at the roof sheeting, Chroma Deck, and then we've got Zimbabwe Grain Bag as well that provides 1-ton bags, mini-meal bags, and all that. So that diversity is really a strength that the group has to leverage on the product, the brand name, and just how well known that these products are, and we try and make sure that we continue supplying them. If you look at your home and see how many items come
your
from
touch
the
points, Tregers group, yeah.
So that I think that is the enduring strength of the group. Yeah.
And you've been in the fast-moving consumer goods space for a long time, and I want you to help us with understanding what are the key ingredients of leading in that space. What should one be looking out for?
I think if you're involved in manufacturing and as a leader, you need to know your process. You need to understand where you, how to make your process more efficient, okay? Where do I get the best raw materials, best quality, best price? How do I get the best out of my machinery? How do I run efficiently? How do I use less power but still get the same product? And quality, consistency. I think for manufacturing, that's a big thing. Anyone who buys, who uses our packaging needs to be assured that every time they get something from me, it's the right quality and it works in their factory. And I think that's what I've learned even from Delta. You know, the Coca-Cola must be the Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
You know, Zimbabweans, if you just change anything, they can taste it. And the damage to your brand is huge. You can never repair it. So you need to make sure that consistently you're producing the best results. And I think your team, the people you work with, and I've found working in manufacturing, people who work in manufacturing love what they do. They love the products they produce. I mean, if you go into a store and you know that came from my factory, there's a sense of pride there. So you need to tap into that and make sure you're moving together with your team. And I think it's just process. Manufacturing is all about process and being efficient and producing at the lowest price possible, but maintaining absolute consistency. Yeah.
Maintaining absolute consistency. What consistency do you have in your life in terms of how you lead yourself?
Right. I think prayer. I try and always go back to the source because I have no strength otherwise, and that is the best place to go when you're leading. And I always also try and have honest talks with myself. I always try and look at myself.
Those are not easy, hey?
No, they're not. And lots of times you avoid them because you don't want to face yourself. But there are times when you have to look at yourself.
How do you do it? Do you have a routine for meeting with yourself?
Not really, but if I'm going through something, I always sit down and say, okay, no, you probably were not, that was not the best decision. You shouldn't have done that, but you've done it. Don't do it again. What do we do from here? Okay, your reasons were A, B, C, D. Do they stand the test? Maybe not. So next time, try. Or if I feel like I'm not working as hard as I should or doing what I should be doing, I sit down and I say, no, come on, you've got to do the right thing now. It's a very difficult thing to do, but I think it's necessary. You have to hold yourself to account. Yeah.
Wow. It's being honest with yourself, by yourself.
Yeah. And then you must have people around you who can also be honest with you, no matter how difficult or how afraid they might be of your reaction. But you must have people who are not afraid to tell you the truth. And obviously in the moment you might feel a certain way, but you then learn that was necessary. I needed to hear that. I'm not doing the right thing, or I did the right thing and I don't even realize it. Sometimes it's you don't give yourself enough props. As women as well, we're shy to lift ourselves up.
Celebrate yourself.
Exactly. So sometimes you need people to come and tell you, no, that was a good thing. You should do that more often. And that helps you grow.
And you as a leader, you need to do that to the people around you, isn't it?
Absolutely. You need to be the kind of leader who grows with people. You know, once someone works with you, there must be a difference. That, I worked with Nogu and she taught me this. I worked with Nogu and this is what she was like.
Nogu, one other space that I see you are into, and I'm wondering why, you are involved with non-profits, the Legal Resources Foundation, the Masca Medical Aid Society. Why are you attracted by non-profits? Are they attracted to you, or is the other way around?
Maybe they're attracted to me. So I think for Masca, it's purely a business reason. Being in the Tregers group, we're one of their bigger clients. Okay. So they would want us to be involved in what the society is doing, it being a Bulawayo-based organization, and we are Bulawayo-based as well. I think it's important for them to have representatives from their clients within their board. And then for Legal Resources Foundation, I think I didn't see myself going into that space, but when the opportunity arose, I thought to myself, this is a very good cause. It's something that I typically would not get involved in because it's lawyers. Yeah. But it was a space to grow and something that is very, very important. I mean, if you talk about people who are undocumented, IDs, no access to documentation, the need for people to know their rights, which I may not even be aware of my rights as an individual, and to have an organization that is dedicated to letting people know what their rights are, I think it's a worthy cause. And so I'm also growing and learning a lot from that experience. Yeah.
You are a mother.
Yes.
You are a leader. You are a wife. You are into the non-profit space. Is work-life balance a thing for you, and how do you do it if it is a thing?
I think a lot of women are redefining that. I listened to Shonda Rhimes, and I think even Gloria Joravano said it. I think the word balance is a myth. What I think works is prioritization at any given point in time. So today, this is for me. Talking to you, learning, growing, I had to make the time
being
to
in
do
the
that.
moment.
Being in the moment. Exactly. In the afternoon, one of my daughters has consultation. I have to make time for that. It may mean that sometimes I'm not there for my children 2 or 3 days at a time, but when I'm with them, I'm with them.
In the moment.
In the moment. And I try and be there for all the important moments. And when I'm required at work, I give my 100% and I'm there. So balance makes it seem like you can do everything all at once. It's impossible. But you just have to be, when you're doing something, you're doing it to the best of your ability, and then you can move on to the next thing. You'll find that you can somehow manage to get all the important points done. And forgive yourself and accept that some things you may not be able to
Forgive yourself and accept you can't do things. That can be tough sometimes.
Absolutely, especially as a mom.
If you can't forgive yourself, how do you forgive other people? That's the thing, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. You love cooking.
I do.
What do you get from cooking?
It's a form of release, I think. The fact that I'm feeding people good food.
Yeah.
I'm a good cook, if I do say so. Another legacy of my
We
mother.
love good food. We love good food.
And I also enjoy eating good food.
So cooking's from mom.
Yeah, cooking's from mom. So she's got a background in home economics, so cooking, sewing, gardening. She's very good at all that. Not so good at sewing, so I took the cooking side of it. And I think it's an expression of love when you cook for people. When you have people over and you've cooked a meal for them and they're enjoying it. It's an expression of love. It's a way to release. It's a place where there's no pressure of work or anything like that. You just cook. You release, the food is there, people eat, you enjoy it as well. Why not, you know?
Oh, fantastic. Where do you see yourself? I mean, I'm asking, going back to your age, you're 38 years old, you're a managing director. Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
That's a tough one. I think, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. But I think definitely it won't be in the same place. And wherever I will be, it will be a place where I can apply whatever I've learned so far and then continue to grow as well. I don't think...
Do you see yourself continuing in the corporate sector or doing your own thing?
I think I see myself continuing in the corporate sector. I'm more of an entrepreneur, so I do well in a corporate setting. If I were to start something of my own, I think the dream would be for it to eventually be corporate as well. I'm not a small business kind of person. I think I would want, if I did go into that space, to grow it as well into a corporate venture that would work in this environment. Or
is there a goal that's clear for you right now, that you'd want to, that you're chasing, and that 10 years would be
No, I think I reached this stage and I realized I just have to make the most of where I am now. A lot of times we were planning forward 5 years from now, but definitely I think in 10 years I will still be in a corporate space, but maybe a different one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We love young people like you who are doing great things like you're doing, and we're going to be watching you. You read books, eh? You like books?
I do.
Wonderful. We're going to tend to books now. Our viewers all over the world love books, so I'm going to tend to you and ask you, what 3 books would you recommend to our book-loving audience?
The first one is the Bible. You can never finish it because even if you read it over and over, each scripture means something different depending on where you are and the season. Yeah. So you can read the same verse, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In a season of lack, it means you shall not lack. In a season of plenty, it means God has provided. So that's the first book that I would recommend. I'm a fiction lover.
Who influenced your faith?
My parents did. My parents are of strong faith. My grandparents were also of strong faith. And I think it's something that we just grew up with. And we also had an opportunity I had an opportunity to experience it personally. And so I stand very firm on my faith.
And are you influencing your kids too with that?
Yes.
Your kids' names, by the way, are?
Rachel and Rebecca.
Because they're going to be watching you. And you're going to be in trouble if you don't mention them.
If I don't mention my 2 daughters, Rachel and Rebecca.
And your husband's name is?
My husband's name is Takudzwa.
Takudzwa.
Yes.
Fantastic. The second book?
The second book, I would say that I'll pick one fiction and one non-fiction.
Okay.
I loved Wilbur Smith, from my teens into early 20s. I would be supposed to be studying or in bed, and I would try and finish this 500-page book in 2 nights. So one of my favorites from Wilbur Smith is Seventh Scroll. I liked Taita in that book, a clever little eunuch who was instrumental to shaping the Egyptian world. Of course, it's fiction, but just reading about his clever machinations and his ideas and his plans, it was so fascinating for me. And then the nonfiction, I read Who Moved My Cheese. It's a very small book.
Yeah, small yellow in color. Yeah.
But it teaches you that you need to adapt and change to a situation, and you can't always think the same way. You need to be willing to try new things if you want to get the bigger chunk of cheese. So that's the one that I would recommend and I think it's a good starting point when you start looking at nonfiction, autobiographies, and it's a nice light read, but it's very impactful, I think, for a book. Yeah.
Nogu, it's been such a joy talking to you from Gwabulawayo,
Yes.
a Gwabulawayo girl who's doing amazing, lady, hey, not girl, lady, who's doing amazing things. You remain here, you're passionate about this city as we are.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for creating the time and being with us in the moment and have this amazing conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Allow me now to turn to our viewers who are all over the world to say thank you so much for watching. And I want to thank Legacy Rental, the Tea Room at ZITF, and Phoebe's Lodge for making the Bulawayo series possible. Remember, we are out at 7 a.m. Central African Time every Monday morning on YouTube. And to ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations, I invite you to click on that subscribe button, click the notification button so that you get notification every time we have one of these quality conversations. We've gone a step further, by the way, and created a website where all of our content sits. Go there and binge as much as possible. We see your comments, keep them coming, share as much as possible. Thank you for watching. Until next time, cheers to you all.